Hello everyone, you're watching Flash News. I'm Don Arleth and welcome to the program. Armed with the most effective weapons and the most modern armor, considered one of the best in the world, the American-made Abrams tank. This will not only give better defensive capabilities, but will change the image of the Polish army. In total, the eastern flank of NATO at the Vistula River will be guarded by 250 Abrams tanks, serving under the 18th Mechanized Division.
1,500 horsepower and an engine that will run on any fuel, able to accelerate the 60-ton beast to 70 kilometers per hour. Abrams, which are the basic tanks of the American army, will now strengthen the Polish military. Tanks in the best-equipped version, battle-tested tanks that were designed as a counterweight to the state-of-the-art Russian T-14 tanks. Since the beginning of its more than 40-year history, no U.S. Army Abrams has been destroyed by an enemy tank. 250 machines, the first of which will arrive in Poland next year, can use the latest programmable munitions. It is not only the ability to fire in a variety of conditions, the ability to conduct surveillance, but most importantly, its incredible effectiveness. The entire program of equipping the army with Abrams cost more than 20 billion zlotys outside the budget of the Ministry of Defense. The times in which we live, the situation in which we live, the place in which we live requires it, and therefore we want to do it. It is our duty, it is a great undertaking. In the package with American tanks, Poland will also receive technical support, medical evacuation and command vehicles, and last but not least, assault bridges, which will allow tanks of this weight to cross water obstacles efficiently. In addition, there will be a logistical and training package which will include such things as simulators and a large supply of ammunition. The Abrams that will supply the Polish army will go to the youngest, the 18th Mechanized Division, stationed east of the Vistula River. This will be one of the most modern, if not the most modern division in the Polish army at the moment. Abrams are the world's top tanks. It is one of the 3 best constructions in the world at the moment. The tanks will also significantly increase the interoperability of the Polish army. It is an equipment which cooperates, among others, with F-35s and F-16 aircraft.
Nord Stream 2 is still uncompleted, still with an uncertain future. Angela Merkel is traveling to the United States, and the main topic will certainly be the completion of the Russian-German pipeline, which is under U.S. sanctions.
Angela Merkel is aware that it was U.S. sanctions that thwarted German-Russian plans to launch Nord Stream 2. Its construction restarted after a year's hiatus a few months ago when Joe Biden took a kinder view of the project. However, the pipeline still has strong opponents in the U.S. I will discuss this issue with President Biden. We need to reach a common position. Nord Stream 2 will be the main topic of Chancellor Angela Merkel's talks in Washington because this is an issue that divides Germany and the United States. Chancellor Angela Merkel is not at all sure that she will be successful in this. The House of Representatives is doing its best to ensure that sanctions imposed on companies building the pipeline do not expire, calling Nord Stream 2 a political weapon. Denying that this project has political significance is simply a lie. Berlin doesn't mind that the gas pipeline is detrimental to the energy security of the European Union. The contract for the construction of Nord Stream first line was signed by German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who after taking office took up a position on the supervisory board of the Gazprom-controlled consortium. Gazprom employs many former Western European politicians. This may be a synecracy as a form of reward for working for Russian interests back in the days of high political activity. The flagship example is former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder. The careers of Germany's most prominent politicians once out of office have raised objections from Germans themselves. Joschka Fischer, as German vice-chancellor, campaigned for the legalization of cannabis, and when he ceased to hold his position, he worked in a Canadian cannabis company. As Gazeta Polska revealed, Sławomir Nowak, a former minister in Donald Tusk's government, was supposed to work for this German politician's company. I am afraid it is simply a matter of lack of shame of any kind and lack of loyalty to your own state and your own people. There are indications that Nowak was to receive 3,000 euros a month for his work as a lobbyist for German corporations, the weekly emphasizes.
This is hybrid warfare and organized criminal activity by Alexander Lukashenko. The Lithuanian Seimas, or the lower house of parliament, has adopted a resolution which warns against the attempt of the Belarusian regime to destabilize our region. Minsk is importing Islamic migrants from the Middle East and releasing them on the border with Lithuania.
Another day and another storm of illegal Islamic migrants brought by the Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko to the border with Lithuania.
They help us, yes. They show me the line. For example, if I'm lost, if they catch me, where are you going? I told them I need to go light line. They said go this line. They help us.
The Lithuanian Seimas speaks plainly about Lukashenko's criminal activities. In the adopted resolution, it calls these actions a hybrid war.
The government of Lithuania intends to provide all the support that is needed for those people whom we think also being, in a way, victims of organized crime and Lukashenko participation in this process.
This is an attempt to destabilize not only Lithuania but also the countries of our region. In less than 7 months, 21 times more migrants illegally crossed the Belarusian-Lithuanian border than in the whole of last year. We are dealing with blackmail. These people, they're from Iraq or from other countries, are brought by state-owned Belarusian companies and thrown over the border on purpose. Lithuania has already appealed to the EU member states for help. Poland was the first to support our neighbors. We are dealing with a de facto hybrid attack with the use of people, in this case illegal migrants, to destabilize the state. Poland is also supporting the Lithuanians here as best it can, as this is a common threat. This time it fell on the Lithuanians, but Poles also have a border with Belarus. Hence the increased controls at the border with Belarus. This is a patrol of Podlasie border guards at the crossing point in Kuźnica. Border guards are guarding Polish borders and border areas around the clock. The Polish-Belarusian section of the border is very carefully and continuously monitored by the border guards. We are watching what is happening in Lithuania. We have noticed that also in our country these statistics have increased in terms of the number of illegal migrants. Our borders are well guarded, especially in view of the migration crisis in Lithuania. Security is a priority.
In France, July 14th is Bastille Day and a national holiday. But for the past 5 years, it's also been a tragic anniversary of the terrorist attack in Nice, in which 87 people were killed and nearly 500 were injured. A truck driven by a Tunisian Islamist drove into a crowd of people gathered on a seaside promenade.
Just like today, it was another sunny day on the French Côte d'Azur. In July 2016, a white truck appeared at this location. The driver, a 31-year-old Tunisian man, accelerated into the crowd. In doing so, he covered 2 kilometers, killing men, women, children. There was panic. People were pushing. I left the baby carriage. I saw this car. It was zigzagging. The kids were crying. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. The terrorist attack in Nice killed 86 people, including 2 young Polish women. Several hundred people were injured, many of them seriously. On the 14th of July 2016, something most beautiful we had was attacked. We must live, the city must live, but never forget. The attacker was shot dead by police. The so-called Islamic State has claimed responsibility for organizing the attack. This is a blow to the families of the victims and to France as a whole. Although 5 years have passed since the attack, the problem of terrorism in France has not disappeared. Also from Tunisia, a 21-year-old man shouting Allah Akbar killed 3 people praying in a church. One of the victims had his head cut off. In France, a trial will begin soon for yet another act of terror. Moroccan-born Salah Abdeslam will stand trial accused of involvement in the preparation and execution of the 2015 Paris attack. Nearly 6 years ago, terrorists attacked in several neighborhoods of the French capital, killing 130 people.
The death toll from the riots in South Africa has risen to 72. More than 1,200 people have been arrested. The riots erupted after the country's former president, Jacob Zuma, was sentenced to 15 months in prison.
Zuma was convicted of contempt of court specifically for persistently failing to appear for a hearing on corruption charges during his 9-year rule. Rioting by his supporters escalated into the destruction and looting of shops. Arson attacks occurred and highways were blocked. The army has been deployed in the affected areas to help police bring the situation under control. Reuters points out that the riots are an outbreak of social anger caused by poverty and inequality exacerbated by the pandemic. It is also the biggest wave of violence in South Africa in years.
Now it's time for the daily coronavirus update. 86 new cases were reported and 6 people died. This is the balance of the last 24 hours in Poland. Infectious disease specialists are observing with concern the growth of cases of the dangerous Delta strain in Poland, which is paralyzing Europe. And they appeal for vaccinations because mainly young unvaccinated people are getting seriously ill.
COVID passport or negative test result. This was the only way the French could see the big Bastille Day parade on the Champs-Élysées up close. At least this way we get back to normalcy a bit. But there is a long way to normalcy. Already from August in France, only vaccinated people will be able to function normally. The rest will not enter the cinema, cafes, galleries, planes and trains. All because of Delta, which is paralyzing Europe. More than 35,000 people have already fallen ill in the UK, the most since January. The Mayor of London maintains the requirement to cover your face on public transport, although on Monday the requirement is due to be scrapped across England.
Wearing a face covering, particularly indoors where you can't keep your distance, does reduce transmissions.
More than 150 cases of Delta infection have been confirmed in Poland. More than 30 have arrived in the last few days. If we get vaccinated, the course of the disease will be much milder and will not lead to death. If it is confirmed by all major drug agencies, especially the European one and therefore also the Polish one, that it is possible to vaccinate children under the age of 12, then we will allow it. More than 15 million people in Poland have been fully vaccinated to date.
Pope Francis has left Rome's Gemelli Clinic, where he completed his treatment, and returned to the Vatican. The Holy Father was recovering in the hospital following an operation he underwent on the 4th of July.
Pope Francis was then taken to hospital to undergo a pre-planned procedure. The 84-year-old Francis endured the procedure well, but remained in hospital longer than doctors had initially anticipated. Last Sunday, the Pope led the Angelus prayer from the hospital balcony. During his stay at the clinic, Francis stayed in the same room where John Paul II was treated in the past. The Holy Father will have a few more weeks to recover fully before he begins his apostolic journeys again. The first of these, to Hungary and Slovakia, is scheduled for September.
This is the first space mission of its kind in the world, created and carried out entirely by students. Without taking their feet off the ground, young scientists in Switzerland have traveled analog to the moon, where they test new space products, study the impact of psychology and physiology on the mission, and test new solutions developed in laboratories.
To land on the moon, you don't have to go into space. Just be a student and join the Asclepius Analog Space Mission project.
These projects, developed throughout the year and focusing on the specific issue, will be tested in our European analog missions, a simulation of life on the moon or Mars, but remaining on Earth.
This is the first project of its kind in the world. The entire crew and Mission Control Center are students from all over the world. They gain the same knowledge as professionals.
Asclepius has two scientific goals: being a platform for researchers to test their prototypes and protocols, and train students to organize and conduct analog space missions.
Since the beginning of July, analog astronauts, just like in real space exploration, have to maintain equipment and explore the space around them on their own. They will also try growing plants.
Since Asclepius 2 focuses on the scientific aspects of space exploration, we are planning to implement several scientific experiments. One of them, Red Mars, is focused on how to remove bacterias from soil samples in order to be able to grow food on Mars.
Students also examine the impact of human behavior on mission success and test products designed for use in space. All this in the Grimsel Pass in the Swiss Alps, in tunnels running deep even several hundred meters below the mountains. As the authors of the project say, this is a kind of moon cave. When we think about someday sending people back to the lunar surface or eventually making a flight to Mars where these flights will take, a very long time research is needed. Students have more missions planned. Asclepius 1 is just the beginning.
Venice enjoyed peace and quiet during the pandemic. It also had time to reflect on its future, greatly impacted by mass tourism. Today, no one doubts that radical changes are necessary, and so beginning next month, large cruise ships will be banned from entering Venice, a move which is welcomed by residents.
The ban applies to the largest channel, Giudecca, St. Mark's Square and the Doge's Palace. Other canals are closed because they do not fit. The government decree is a triumph of ecologists and some Venice residents who demanded it for many years. UNESCO and the No Big Ships movement also appealed for a ban. There were also safety reasons. 2 years ago, a cruise ship lost maneuverability and hit the quay, ramming a boat and injuring several people. Flying cows are an unusual sight. Once a year, residents of one of the districts of Karachi can admire it. The spectacle takes place before the Muslim festival of sacrifice, during which the faithful sacrifice animals in the mosque. In this case, cows are raised on the roof, and before the feast they are brought down to the ground with a crane. Iron Man in an eco version. This is a new creation of the creator of the jet suit. This time the British inventor decided to switch to electronic propulsion. Such a suit can lift a man into the air in a few seconds. Its predecessor, whose engines ran on jet fuel, was tested in recent months by soldiers of the British Marines and earlier by rescuers in the remote Lake District. Off the coast of New Zealand, a rescue operation is underway for a baby orca that sailed alone into the rocks near Wellington a few days ago. At the same time, the mother of the baby dolphin is being searched for. The animal has been named Toa, which means warrior in Maori. The orca is between 4 and 6 months old. For now, Toa is being watered and fed, but is unable to survive on her own in the ocean.
One of the world's largest floating solar farms has been built in Singapore. The installation covers an area equivalent to 45 football pitches. The amount of energy produced by the solar panels is enough to power 5 sewage treatment plants. And that's it for tonight, folks. Marcin Przasnik is back tomorrow, so be sure to check him out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.